Good afternoon, students. So, in the previous session, we have discussed in detail about GDP and its various other aspects. And in this particular session, we shall be studying a new concept which is termed as, you can see here, NFIA. This term NFIA stands for net factor income from abroad. Okay. And basically this term NFIA is actually a prerequisite. It's the prerequisite for understanding a new term which is termed as GNP. So all of you have already studied about GDP in complete depth, and now to reach GNP from GDP, we need to actually understand a new term which is termed NFIA, that is net factor income from abroad. So what we need to do, you can see here, GDP you know already. Now to arrive at GNP from GDP, you need to understand a term, or let's say a concept, which is net factor income from abroad. So before starting, I would like to ask you all that can anyone tell me in brief what exactly is GDP? Okay? Yes, you. Can you throw some light over GDP? Okay. Yes. Yes. Can you elaborate more? Okay. Okay, fine. So let me recap once again that what exactly was GDP, and then we will move to NFIA. Okay? Okay, see. For understanding GDP, we had considered 4 factors of production. See, the term itself, GDP, stands for gross domestic product. Gross means something which is without any deductions, that is total value. And what exactly is total value, you already know. I will tell you in detail. And this thing, domestic, means a domestic boundary, that can be a boundary of any country or any economic zone, economic boundary, whereby a country has its sovereign control over the production. And P, you know that P stands for product. So actually, by production, we are producing a product, and this product can be, let's say, goods, and it can be services. So whenever we mean product, we are actually dealing with 2 things, either goods or either services. Okay. So for producing these goods and services, means to derive at a particular product, we need to have something called as factors of production. Means those factors which will be required for producing this particular good or services. Let's take an example of this very institute, Up IAS. Okay. So what we are doing here, we are also producing one product, and that is education services, right? We are imparting education services here, fine. And for producing this education service, this service is a product of Up IAS. For producing this service, we need some factors. And what exactly are these factors? First of all, we need land, right? This is the land, the area where our coaching institute stands, okay? And this area is needed for delivering all our services to you guys. So first and foremost thing is land, which is required for producing any goods or services, and then comes labor. You might have seen our entire team working, day and night to deliver quality education services to all of you. So all our team, our staff, our ground staff, our employees, these represent labor who are actually giving their services for production of this particular service, that is education service. So all the employees, they come under the category of labor. Third one is capital. By capital, we generally mean financial capital. In strict economic terms, we mean financial capital. Okay? And then capital is also, it also stands for things like capital goods, like investment, like all the machines which we are seeing here, our camera, our podium, our platform, the benches, the ACs, the curtains, all these form the part of capital goods, and by the help of these goods, we are delivering the service, that is education services. And apart from this, for getting all these goods here, we might have taken some loan or some finance, some funds, for which we might be paying some interest. Okay? So capital here means some funds or some goods and machineries with the help of which we will be delivering this product. And the last but not the least, what? Yes, entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. So entrepreneur is the one who has actually, the product is generally the brainchild of the entrepreneur. He has invested his time, his money, and he has taken all the financial risk involving this particular project. So entrepreneur is the last but not the least, the most important factor of production. So here in terms of Coach Up IAS also, you may notice all these things happening here. We do have land. Yes, we have land. The space, which might be a rented space, but yes, it's the land. And then we have staff, we have employees. Then we have taken some capital, some funds, and all our capital goods, and also the entrepreneur involved in setting up this very institute. So all these four factors of production are totally involved in producing a product, which is the education services, which we are delivering you guys. Okay? So the four factors of production as discussed are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. And when these factors of production are involved in producing that particular goods or services, a payment is incurred to each one of them. Exactly. Because see, the land which we are using, we have to give rent for that. The landlord will be taking rent for that. Fine. Because he has contributed his or her land to us, so that by the help of their land, we can develop and deliver our goods or services. And the capital, the money which we may have raised from the market, from the banks, from the institutions, for that we have to give what? Interest. Fine. Any issues with that? Okay. And then comes the labor part. Labor means obviously the employees involved. The employees involved, and what they will be getting? They will be getting the wages, the salaries. Okay. And finally, the entrepreneur, he will be getting the remaining profits. Fine. So all these four incomes, income through rent, which is given to basically the landlord, and then the interest, which is given to the financial institution, and then the wages, which is given to the labor, and the remaining profit goes with the entrepreneur. So all these four types of income, they are termed as factor income. Fine? Yes, factor income. So factor income is basically that type of income which comes from factors of production. Means when a particular person or a thing has contributed for producing any goods or services, then the payment that they are charging, or the payment which is incurred for delivering that particular type of factor, the payment received is called factor income. Okay. And factor payment is what? Factor payment is the payment which is paid to these factors of production. How? Let's take an example. Suppose there is a person named A. A is working at a particular factory as an employee or a daily laborer. Fine. So A is working in factory as a labor, and for delivering his services to the factory is paying some kind of wages to who? A. So the income which is received by A, because A is providing labor services to this factory. This factory is the enterprise. The factory is using the services, the labor services of A, and in return, factory is paying to A. And this payment is wages. So the salary which A is receiving is actually his or her factor income. So factor income is the income which is received when you are doing something and helping in factor of production. You may be helping in the production by giving your services, let's say labor services, or you might be giving your own land as a place where the service can start, or the next thing is that capital. So banks are providing, the NBFCs, the institutions are providing some funds, thereby the fund can be used by the particular company, let's say a particular factory, okay, and then the factory will be paying interest on this capital to the particular bank. So the interest received by this bank in this case will be the factor income of the bank, because bank has contributed in the production process. The capital which it has given has formed the part of factors of production, and for giving that part, the bank is getting income, which is interest, okay. So in this very case, A is the factor of production because he is forming the part of labor, and in this case, factory is actually using the factor of production, means the factory is using the services of A, thereby producing some particular goods or services. And for using these services, or I would say for employing the services of A, the payment which A is receiving is actually the income of A, but not its income, specifically its factor income of A. Fine? So the wages earned by A in this case is basically factor income, and the payment which the factory is providing, means the wages which the factory is providing to A, is actually the factor payment of the particular factory. Means the enterprise, when it gives out the payment, it is actually the factor payment, and when the factors of production receive that payment, it's factor income for them. Okay? Any issues with that? Getting it? Okay. So now, when this particular concept of factor income is pretty much clear, I guess. So let's move on to another concept which is termed as the same factor income but which is received from abroad. Fine? So factor income, let's say this is India. Fine? Factor income can come to India from any outside world, means abroad, and again factor income can go from India to the outside world, let's say abroad. Fine? So this arrow is representing factor income from abroad. Factor income from abroad means the factor of production is there in India and they are working for it, and in return they are receiving some income which is factor income. Not getting? Okay. Let me take an example for it. Let's suppose there is an Indian employee who is working in India, and let's say he is a software developer and he is working from home. He is working from home and his company is situated in USA. Okay? So the company, let's say a particular software company is in USA, and the employee of that company is right now in India, and he is working from home. Means he is in India, let's say a particular town, let's say a particular place, Hyderabad. He is working in Hyderabad, but the company is operating in US. Fine? So the production is actually happening where? It's happening in USA. But the factor of production, the ones who are contributing in this production, let's say employee means labor, because employee will here form the part of labor. So labor is here where? Labor is in India. So the company will be giving some income to this particular employee, and this income will be coming all the way from USA to India. Fine? So in this case, let's say the particular person is in India and income is coming from abroad. Fine? The income which A is earning, this income is coming from abroad. So this is termed as factor income from abroad. Let me give you an infographic example for it. Yes, this one. Fine. Here you can see in this example that employee is in India, he is doing a job for a software company, and company is where? Company is in USA. And for doing this job, means providing labor services to this particular company, the company is paying the salary, and this particular salary is what? This is factor income for the particular employee. But this factor income is coming all the way from USA to India. Fine. So in this case, the factor income is coming from abroad. So you can see here, this is factor income received from abroad. Fine. So here, employee is the factor of production and he is receiving salary from US, and this particular salary is actually factor income from abroad. Fine. So one thing is pretty much clear to you. Okay. Let's see the different part. The different part is that the opposite part basically, and this is factor income paid abroad. Factor income paid abroad. Now let's imagine we are in India. There is a particular company named XYZ Private Limited. Okay. And for this company, there is a person in Russia. Okay. Now the person is working from home, let's say, for this particular company. Person is not present here, but the company is here. Means the production is happening in the domestic boundary of our company, our country. Fine. Okay. But let's say the employee A or employee A1 who is working for this company from Russia, since he is providing his labor services as an employee to this particular company, the company will be giving him salary, him or her salary. Fine. And this salary is flowing all the way from India to Russia. Fine. So here the salary means factor income, and the factor income is being paid abroad. Factor income is flowing from India to Russia. So here we will see it that it's termed as factor income paid abroad, or factor income paid sent to abroad. In the previous case, factor income was coming to India, factor income from abroad, and in this case factor income is leaving India, factor income paid abroad. Fine. Okay. So now you have seen these two things. Now we can start with NFIA, that is net factor income from abroad. So the previous example was that employee was in India, the company, let's say the employee in this case was in India, or the example which we have took that the employee was in Russia. Fine. Examples are same, you can name anyone. Employee is in Russia and the company was in India, and in this case the company was paying, let's say in Indian rupees, to the employee in Russia. So the income was flowing all the way from India to Russia. So this was factor income paid abroad. Now we need to understand that in a particular year, some kind of income, factor income, will be coming from abroad in India, and simultaneously some factor income will be paid abroad. It will be leaving India. So the difference of these two is actually NFIA, net factor income from abroad. Fine. Net factor income from abroad. So basically it is the difference between factor income earned from abroad, means the income which is coming from abroad in India, and the difference between factor income from abroad between factor income paid abroad. Let's say 200 rupees is coming as a factor income from abroad, and 100 rupees is leaving from India to somewhere else as factor income paid abroad. So 200 आपके पास आए, 200 is coming, और 100 आपके यहाँ से चले गए. नेट कितना बचा? 200 आए, फाइन, तो प्लस, एंड 100 चले गए. माइनस रिमेनिंग इज व्हाट 100. ये बच गया आपके पास, यही 100 है. दिस 100 इज एक्चुअली NFIA, net factor income from abroad. Let's take few more cases. See, we have case 1 and we have case 2. So factor income received from abroad. Let's say in this case factor income coming from abroad is 400, fine, and factor income paid to abroad is 300. Means let's say this is India, 400 is coming and 300 is leaving. तो 400 आए, 300 चले गए, फाइन. सो नेट कितना बचा रिमेनिंग इन इंडिया 100, फाइन. 400 माइनस 300 एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड 100. यही जो 100 है, दिस 100 रुपीज इज एक्चुअली नेट फैक्टर इनकम फ्रॉम अब्रॉड, फाइन. केस 2, लेट्स से फैक्टर इनकम फ्रॉम अब्रॉड इज लेट्स से 600 and let's say factor income paid abroad is 800. Means 600 incoming, 800 outgoing. 600 आए, 800 चले गए, रिमेनिंग क्या बचा माइनस. सो 600 minus 800, remaining is minus 200. In this case NFIA is negative. So it can be seen that NFIA can be positive, can be negative. It will be positive when factor income from abroad is more, is greater than factor income paid abroad, and it will be negative if factor income from abroad is less as compared to factor income paid abroad. Okay. So now you can see that this term is either negative or positive. But how would it actually, be good or bad for economy to decide from this thing? See, basically the thing is that NFIA is required in the calculation of GNP, gross national product, fine. So to arrive from GDP to GNP we need NFIA. This we have discussed earlier. So how it is needed? The thing is that the same NFIA which you have calculated here, it needs to be added in GDP. Means GNP is basically this thing. GNP means GDP plus NFIA, फाइन. तो जो GDP आपने ऑलरेडी निकाल लिया था, आपने सीख लिया था, तो in this GDP if we add this NFIA, net factor income from abroad, then you will come to GNP, fine. So that's where we need to understand the importance of NFIA. So if NFIA will be negative, it will be bad for the economy. Why? Let's say GDP is 1000, fine, okay, GDP is 1000, but let's say NFIA is minus 200, then GNP will be what? It will be 1000 means GDP plus NFIA, and this NFIA is in negative. So 1000 plus minus 200 means 800. Now what is happening? GNP is getting reduced in terms of GDP. GDP is okay, it's 1000, but GNP is lowered. Why? Because there was net factor income in negative, means the factor income from abroad was much lesser as compared to factor income paid abroad. Okay. So this was all about NFIA, and now in the next session we shall be discussing in detail GNP. So this NFIA was basically a prerequisite which was required for calculating the GNP. I hope it is clear, and in case of any issues we will connect later. Okay.